Hi, and welcome to the About Me page. I guess this is really about me telling you about myself. It's interesting. A lot of my work at this point is trying to help people move beyond the idea of who they think they are so that we can actually follow our creative passions and create beautiful things in the world and create expressive companies that reflect the things that bring us to life. But for the sake of this About Me page, if you're thinking of working with me or doing coaching, I think it's important to know kind of what skills I bring to the table, what my background is, and I'll try and summarize that right now. But I started in business when I was quite young. I went to university. Actually, I'll start with skateboarding. I grew up as a skateboarder, and that's kind of where I really fell in love with just following passion, following my bliss. I think that's the biggest lesson I took when I was very young. And I was always discouraged from being from skateboarding by my family because it didn't have a lot of practicality. But it's where I really learned to go after what I want to do in life and just like follow my bliss. When I was a little bit older, I decided that I got interested in business and finance specifically. So when I did my degree in finance, and I kind of fell in love. That's where I learned to study, and I fell in love with the process of studying. And it was kind of the first time in my life where I was ever interested in book learning and lectures, and I really loved university. So finance was my first intellectual passion, perhaps. And that kind of took me on the path of business, and I never actually went into corporate finance. But I instead started my own company while I was in university, and I went down the franchise route. So a lot of my finance skills applied because you have to learn how to manage money and route cash flow and all that stuff. But entrepreneurship is so much more than that, and I started my own business and paid off my student debt in my first year out of university, and went down the franchise model. And that's kind of where I learned all about like systemization, essentially, how to take something, systemize the processes, which ultimately frees up time and creates a model so that you can scale. One of the beautiful things about the franchise model, there's a few things that are really awesome about it. Number one is franchising is really cool because, for one thing, you get a system. So the whole essence of franchising, which I still do franchising today, I've become a franchisor and I have an independent home service company. But you create a model that works in one city, and once you've refined that model, it's really nice because you can just take that, refine it, and then once you feel like you have a working model, then you can scale it and teach others how to use the model that has been proven. So that's a beautiful part about being a franchisee, which was kind of my first role in business, is being a franchisee. The other thing I really like about franchising is you get a coach. A coach is assigned to you from day one. So the coach's job is essentially to hold accountability and teach you how to use the system, the model that has been proven, and to not diverge from it. So in one sense, being a franchisee is not the most creative way because it's more about management than it is about creation if you're on the franchisee side of things. But for me, that was a great start in business because I came into as a franchisee, and I got to learn all the fundamentals of business. So like recruitment, finance, marketing, sales, team building, operations, leadership, and all those things. They're just the fundamentals of business in a model so you're not as worried about whether it's going to work or not. You can just actually follow the system. But it really got my eyes targeted on systemization, which has helped me a lot in my business life. It's what provides me the opportunity to do creative outlets like this company, Foundations, which I'm going to get to. But yeah, that was kind of my start. Is I went into franchising and learned all those basics, coaching, and learning how to be coached was really valuable. Just like letting someone take me under their wing and following instruction. Yeah, and then around, I guess, the age of, I was a franchisee for about 4 years. I went and became a real estate agent for a while. Didn't like being a real estate agent. In my earlier life, I was more into like real estate investing and buying real estate. So I thought I'd be a good real estate agent. Turns out buying real estate is not the same as selling real estate. So I quit that. And then I went on to go help in the development of another franchise in the home service space, and this was like a house detailing company. And that was also very interesting because I was more on the creation side. Once again, I wasn't the franchisor. I was a franchisee, but I was in the early development of the company. So a lot of the systems, I had the opportunity to help in the building of those systems. And that was a really cool experience, built a lot of confidence. And I owned that franchise for another 5 years or so before I eventually sold it in 2020. Since then, I started my own personal franchise, and now I'm on kind of the franchisor end. So that gives a spectrum for kind of my business life. It's been in the franchising arena, and it's highly based on systemization, finding models that work, and then organizing in a way that it's usable by many people so that you can actually grow. But it was when I was 20, where foundations comes in, and where my own personal inner and spiritual life began was when I was 28. I was 28 years old, and I was really business oriented at the time, and I was with a beautiful partner. I had been with her for 7 years or something. I met her in university, and I went through this. I was just kind of focused on business and trying to build this vision and build wealth and all that stuff. And I never really found out the details of why, but my partner left, and she went to India, and she never came back. And I went into the way I kind of resonate with it is it's honestly kind of the biggest life pivot of my life, where I started to really ask new questions, and I basically went through heartbreak, and I realized that what I was doing was very externally motivated, and I wasn't really pursuing higher values, and the things I was building weren't really relevant to what I really believed in. And I went through this period of deep sorrow, deep reflection, and felt the heartbreak of what I was doing in my life. And, at the time I'm associating it with that's why she left me and all these things. But it was really a blessing because it was the first time I really started to get in touch with my own personal emotions. At that time, I don't think I had cried in I can't even remember, maybe a decade, a long time. And I tapped into my sadness, and it really just got me on this path of asking new questions. And at that same time, is when I was introduced to plant medicines, because I was asking these questions, and a friend of mine introduced me to psilocybin mushrooms. And that when I was 28, that was the most life-changing period of my life in terms of my perspective on reality and on the world and on what is actually going on here. And it taught me that the questions we ask in life define what we see in a big way. And the questions I was asking no longer had anything to do with business for that period. And for that first year, I would sit in a ceremony. I'd do these personal ceremonies. I'd go with sometimes with a sitter, but often by myself. I'd go off into nature. I have this cabin that I've been renting I still rent it today. It's like this tiny little cabin that has nothing in it except for a wood burning stove. And I would just sit there. I'd prepare for about a week ahead, get myself grounded. And every week or two, I'd kind of just sit in my own little personal ceremonies with my shit, basically. And I learned so much about myself and what was happening inside of me and where I was not living authentically and truthfully and aligned. And it changed my life and my whole sense of who I thought I was and my identity structure. And this is where I started to first really understand what the basics of what the ego is. This sense of self and who the whole identity system of who you think you are, and trying to shape it and trying to get other people to think you are the thing that you're trying to project, and the rat race that's involved with that whole system of projection and identification. And for the first time, I realized that I didn't know who I was, and that became this core pillar, this who am I, as a foundational statement for inquiry. And I still ask that question today because it's an unanswerable question in most respects. And now I look back, and that was the best thing that ever could have happened to me, was that heartbreak. And since then, I've learned to tap into my emotions and my body in ways that, and it was in that period I actually transitioned back to my roots. I come from this skateboarding background, and I didn't want to go back to skateboarding, but I started really deep diving into my values systems, and I decided then I wanted to be a full-time rock climber. So I took some time off, and I just went full force into rock climbing, which is now one of my greatest passions of my life today. And I got back into my body and really just started living presently again, learning to live presently. Something that's kind of a gift, but it's also a curse, is I'm a very visionary person in my life, which means I tend to, if left alone, I'll vision with quite deep clarity. So it's a gift in one respect, because it gives me this long-term understanding of who I'm becoming and where I'm going as a man. And but at the same time, if you get too vision oriented and you're always thinking about vision, you're never actually present in life. And so much of my path is learning to be present and really to live passionately here and now, and see the beauty in the world. And now so much, if I had to define my journey, it's the journey of higher consciousness. So that kind of gives a framework for when the big pivot happened for me. So Foundations, which is the website you're on right now, and the company is a blend of these two things. It's really like, how do we do the inner work to find out the deeper levels of our authentic self, so that we can actually express and create from that place. And business is a great tool for creation, right? These things we want to do in our life, they take money, they take resources, they take attention. So finding ways to create value and get compensated for that value, so that we can continue to be engaged in our passions, is so important. And this is the place that we want to create our companies from. Higher values, right? So values work is, on a personal development kind of standpoint, is really deep work. And then beside the personal development is deeper inner spiritual deepening. And Foundations, actually, the entire vision for Foundations actually came from an ayahuasca ceremony. My first or my second, I don't remember, but I think it was my first or my second ayahuasca ceremony that I ever did. This entire vision for Foundations actually came, and it felt like it was honestly channeled through me, like it was gifted to me from Aya. And I came out, and I'm like, I'm starting this company, and I really didn't know a lot about what Foundations was going to be, but the mission statement was, and still is, really to I'll actually tell you how the mission came out, but I went into the ayahuasca ceremony with my intention, and my intention at the time was just, how can I best serve humanity in the earth? That was my intention. And I wanted an answer. And pretty quickly in that ceremony, I came back, and it just said, show people how to fall in love with this place. And that became the original mission statement. Teach people to fall in love with the world. And I realized at the time that the person that I needed, the first student of the mission, really was me. It's this one. How do I expand my horizon, expand my perspective, so that I can authentically just love everything that life has to offer? Not just the good experiences, but everything. How do you appreciate the challenges, the difficulties, the heartbreaks of your life? And once I really started to embrace the fullness of life and not judge one thing as a good experience and these are the bad ones, my life started to be a lot more whole and a lot more full. And my desire to create really started to expand. So that's kind of where Foundations came from. The mission kind of evolved from there into helping people to live with less fear and more love, and make decisions from a place of love. We're not here to eliminate fear. Fear is a part of reality. It is a part of the human experience. It is part of duality. But we don't want to make our decisions and live from that place. We want to have access to it because fear is speaking to us, but it is not the root, the highest vibration to actually live from and to make decisions from. So with that being said, my quest at this point now is just to create beauty and to create things that I'm passionate about and to help others tap into their own joy, their own passions with deep clarity so that they can create what they're here to create. Everything in this world has purpose. Purpose is one of these resonant words for me. And at first I didn't really like the word, but now it just seems to be something that really attracts me. There is purpose to anything that is in the world. Everything has a role. Everything has a purpose. Everything is gifted with a sacred path. And that includes you, me, and everything. And the question is what are the things that are preventing us from realizing our deeper gifts and really letting our gifts that we were born with shine? I use the analogy of like an apple tree often. The seed of an apple tree it's born into purpose. It's genetically and biologically and it's seeded to become an apple tree. The thing about apple trees is they don't question anything. They just live their purpose, right? However, they need the nutrients, they need support in order to live the most high vibration expression of their purpose, which is to produce apples and be an apple tree, right? But it still needs lots of water. It needs soil. It needs healthy soil. It needs a lot of sunshine. And then it will be able to vibrate its highest purpose. So that's what we're like too. We all have our unique gifts, and a big part of your life and my life is to uncover those gifts and then let it shine. And when we start to do that, we can really live our lives presently, knowing that we're expressing from our heart. So that's about me. So, I mean, that's a real summary of me in a consolidated fashion. I recently built a values workshop, like a pretty high level values workshop, which I'm going to be offering. And I'm going to actually put those values down in the links below. Or not the links below, but on this page, because it helps to remind me of the things that I know are deeply, deeply purposeful and meaningful to me. But it also gives you an idea of who I am if you choose to work with me.